Welcome to the Art of Adventure. This is a paternity leave episode featuring an episode from Travis Sherry's Extra Pack of Peanuts podcast. And I have a newborn baby at home, which means I'm taking a little break from recording new episodes of The Art of Adventure. And I thought that it would be the perfect time to shine the light on some of my favorite other adventure and travel podcasts. So some of my friends from the podcasting world have generously decided to contribute one of their adventurous episodes for me to rebroadcast on The Art of Adventure. Today's episode is being rebroadcast from the Extra Pack of Peanuts. It was originally published there in September 2016 by Travis and his wife, Heather. And if you're not familiar with the Extra Pack of Peanuts podcast, it's one of the top travel podcasts in the world. I've been a guest on his show. Travis has been a guest here on The Art of Adventure. And in this episode, Travis and Heather share their all-time favorite day of traveling. This is a guy who's been all over the world. And this episode takes place over a single day in the Republic of Georgia. So enjoy their storytelling, and also head over to check out the Extra Pack of Peanuts podcast when you're done listening to this one. And I'll be back with new episodes of The Art of Adventure for you in January of 2019.
Hello, travel nerds, and welcome to the Extra Pack of Peanuts travel podcast, the show that teaches you how to travel more while spending less. I'm your host, Travis Sherry, and joining me today is someone who is never afraid to finish the last of the carafe of wine, my wife and constant travel companion, Heather.
I don't even know how to respond to that. I love wine. What are you referring to, like every day the past 5 days?
I'm just saying you're never shy about finishing off the carafe of wine. That's kind of nice while we're here in Greece. You know, you go and you get 500 milliliters in a nice little carafe. I'm usually good for like one glass, and you're good for the rest of the 500 mils.
Well, I offered the last glass to you. I always offer if you want it.
You do always offer.
Thank you.
But I know you enjoy it much more than me. And I'm just like a one wine glass person at lunch usually. You know, I just like to wet.
We're on vacation, first of all.
Yeah, here, speaking of, welcome back, or hi. It's been a while, and that was half intentional and half by accident that we've had a little bit of a hiatus here with the podcast. The intentional part was we did want to give ourselves the chance to get out and travel for travel's sake some, not have to do much work, not do much recording or anything like that. So we've gotten to go through Norway, the country of Georgia, and now we're sitting here on the island of Paros in Greece, and it's beautiful, but it is windy.
Yeah, about 30-mile-per-hour winds.
Yeah,
we're blasting at us all
blasting
day.
at us. So we're lucky we didn't get blown off the motorbike. The by accident part is the fact that the internet, believe it or not, you probably believe it, not so great in the country of Georgia. Also, not so great a lot of places in Greece. So we haven't been able to get much stuff uploaded, things like that. Either way, sunsets, motorbike rides, all that kind of stuff, absolutely awesome, really cool here in Greece. But as cool as they are, that's not. It is one of the reasons we travel, of course, the beauty and all that kind of stuff. But there's kind of some other reasons that we travel, and I think that this story is going to highlight that.
Yeah, and I think what you're referring to is cultural interactions.
Yeah, cultural interactions, and we want to tell you this story today. We're going to kind of take you back a few weeks, and we're going to tell you about our day, and the reason that we travel, why we travel, is highlighted in this one story. And we're telling this story for three reasons. One, it's an entertaining story, so we hope you find it as interesting as we did too. It highlights one of our travel rules, and a rule that we shouldn't break even if we want to. And during this story, we definitely wanted to break this travel rule, but we're thankful that we didn't. And three, there is this overarching moral to the story that kind of encapsulates the biggest part of why we travel, and we'll touch on that. So without further ado, we were sitting in the city of Tbilisi, the capital of the Republic of Georgia. We say the country of Georgia. Officially, it's the Republic of Georgia.
Republic of Georgia.
And we had been in Tbilisi for 2 days at that point,
yeah,
right?
barely 2 days. We got in at like 4 o'clock in the morning. We had that day, the next day, and then we decided to go on an epic journey through the wine country, through the mountains. What was it supposed to be? About a 6-day journey. So we were starting it on this 3rd day in Georgia.
We were getting out of the city. We had hired a driver to take us up to the regions that you have to have like a 4x4 vehicle up there. Thankfully, we did. Shout out to our boy Akko, because those roads are crazy. And we will be giving you a lot of information on the Republic of Georgia in some future podcasts. So hold on to that. We'll be telling you how to do it and everything like that. It's a beautiful country. It's an awesome country. But we were getting ready to go on this trip. And I wanted to save some money, of course.
Of course.
And so we decided to do the first leg of the trip without the driver the first day. What we were going to do was take a marshrutka. And a marshrutka is a minibus. It is public transportation. It can get you around most of the areas of Georgia. And we were going to take that out to our first city outside of Tbilisi called Signori. And Signori is kind of in the heart of the wine country, and we're going to go out there on a mashruka, and we're going to find our own way to Signori.
Yeah.
And it seemed pretty easy.
It seemed pretty easy. I mean, we're talking about public transportation that's very widely used in Georgia, in Tbilisi. But, of course, it was not without its mishaps.
Yeah, so the day starts, we wake up, we have a good old lunch at this place. We're like, all right, we have to catch this mashrutka at 1 p.m. We've been told just to go to this one metro station. But instead of taking the metro, we had our bags with us, and also we said, okay, instead of taking the metro, what we're going to do is we're going to get a driver, because we had to go get a SIM card.
We're going to get a taxi.
A taxi, right.
Yeah.
So because we had to get a SIM card for our phone anyway. So we flagged down this taxi.
Taxis are very cheap in
Very
Tbilisi.
cheap.
I mean, a couple of dollars. So we figured instead of hiring a driver to drive us to wine country, which was about 150 lari.
About $75. If you hear lari, cut it in half. That's about how many US dollars it is.
And the mashruka is...
The mashrutka was going to be
$2
about $3 a person. So it's going to be $6 a person instead of basically $75.
So we figured we could splurge on the taxi. We grab a taxi. He's super nice. He takes us to the cell phone store so that we can get a SIM card for our phone.
Also very cheap, $7. Again, we won't give you too many details because we'll do a whole podcast about it, but I can't help but throw it in.
So the taxi driver is really nice, and I'm chatting with him while Trav's in the cell phone store, and I'm feeling good about the situation. Like, okay, it's like 12:15. We don't have to get the bus till 1. We're in the taxi. We're going to be at the metro station with plenty of time to spare.
Sure. So it takes us about 15 minutes to get there, and he asks us as he's pulling into this mess of people. There's people everywhere.
Cars everywhere.
And we've not been in this part of the city at all. And he's asking us, is this okay? Is this okay? And people are knocking on the windows. They're saying, oh, mashrutka, come with us. So we're like, well, we thought it'd be a little more organized. Maybe there'd be like a little ticket counter. We could buy an actual ticket for the mashrutka. Like, we thought maybe it would be a little more organized.
Well, let me just say this, before we went to Georgia, I was reading about Georgia and about Tbilisi, and people said it feels very European. Which it does, except if you're trying to get a mashruka, then it feels like you are in like a third world country in Southeast Asia.
Right. It was, back to our days in Southeast Asia and Thailand. And so they're like, knock on the windows. We're like, yeah, sure, this should be fine. So we get out, and guys are grabbing our bags. And they're just, they're telling us mashrutka. And we're like, yes, we need to catch the 1 o'clock. But they're just hollering at us, and they're grabbing our bag and telling us, this way, 5 lari a person, 6 lari a person.
So then they put our bags in this like station wagon that's filled with trash. Literally filled with garbage bags. There's hardly any room for our suitcases, let alone Travis and myself.
Yeah, we obviously knew this wasn't a mashrutka, and they're like, where are you going? We say Signori, and this old guy has this car filled, as Heather mentioned, filled with trash, like filled to the brim with trash coming out the windows. And
it's just chaos all around us. There's tons of people shouting. There's tons of cars. There's buses. So we feel like we're close to where these mashrukas are, but yet our luggage is in a car that's backing up, and this guy is like telling us to get in the car.
Right. So Heather is smart, and she's like, we're not going with this guy. And
because you would have gone with the guy.
No, but I just didn't know what was happening. I was kind of like, well, he said he'll get us there. It's kind of like, I kind of wanted to. I wanted the situation situation to end. So I'm like, God, if we get in the car, I guess it ends.
No, I was not riding 2.5 hours in this car filled with trash. So I saw my suitcase like backing away from me, and I stopped the car and I just got our stuff and we started walking away. And people are still hassling us.
Yeah, and they're yelling and they're like,
away.
why are you getting, like, basically, why are you out of here? You know, where are you going? And Heather, yeah, you opened the door of the car without the guy doing it, and you just like pulled your suitcase out. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're getting out of here. Pulled mine, and we just walked away from the mayhem. Like, we walked kind of half a block around the corner, but then we had no idea where the minibuses were. I mean, when we say there was mayhem, I mean, there's just cars and people everywhere, and there's nothing that looks like an official bus.
Outdoor markets and traffic. It's a very, very heavily populated part of the city, but it's like the chaos part of the city, not the nice cobblestone European street part of the city.
So we have no idea what we're doing. And
it's now like 12:40.
It's 12:40, 12:45. We're asking guys on the road, Mashrutka, Signari, and they're just like pointing in one direction, like, which is basically saying going down the road. So I did know that we had to go to we were supposed to go to a different metro station. We had gone to this one that the taxi driver dropped us off at. We don't know whether he was trying to hook us up to go with his friends or what. We're still unsure of that. We'll never know. But then we flag down another taxi and say, can you take us to this metro station? Because we figured, all right, up there, the Mashrukas are going to make sense. That's where we were supposed to go in the first place. And I was just one metro station up, and we get in with him, and he takes us up there. And long story short, we still can't find it. We don't know where we're going.
We can't find this Mashruka station anywhere. And we're wandering around, and we're walking, and it's like 95 degrees, and
no one is speaking English.
It's frustrating.
We have no idea what's going on. We see, so we start walking. We see all these little mini buses, but they're all privately owned. Like, we, I guess, assumed it was going to be a bus that would stick out like a public bus, but they're all privately owned. And, all of them are saying Mestia, and Mestia is this other town that was 9 hours away. We knew we didn't want to get on that. But, also the Georgian alphabet is not Roman letters. So some said Mestia in Roman letters, but all the other ones said stuff we couldn't understand. So we're just walking. We're asking people, Signari, and they just keep pointing us down. We found out that each little kind of depot was for Mashrutkas going to different areas. So finally we got to the Signari one, but there was one, and we had missed the 1 o'clock, and the guy said he wasn't going till 3 p.m. So we were a bit perturbed at that point.
And not to mention that, like, the actual Mashruka station was, like, in a dirt parking lot that had, like, one little sign that said minibus or something. So it was really hard to find. And if we had to tell some of you how to find it, I still think it would not be easy for anyone to find it. But anyway.
So we're bummed, but this is where the story turned, and this is one of the reasons we travel. Is, we're sitting there like, well, I guess we're waiting until 3 p.m. We didn't want to leave this area because we're like, well, if we get out of here, how are we even going to get back here? So, like, we're going to sit on this curb in this outdoor market with people all over the place for 2 hours. Not our idea of fun. And this guy finally comes up to me. This younger guy comes up named Misha, and he comes up and he says, hey, do you, halting English, but do you need a Mashrutka to Signori? And I said, yeah. He said, come with me. And I'm thinking, oh, great.
Here
there's
we
going to
go.
be another guy putting our bags in a car full of trash. And, but no, he explained to me that his father had a Mashrutka and was going to be going to Signori at 1:45. Why? I still don't know. I could not get this information out of him. It's supposed to go at 1, 3, 5, and 7. This one was going at 1:45.
Hey, good news to us, because I didn't want to sit in the blaring sun and wait until 3 p.m.
Yeah, so we're like, fine, we get in. We knew we were in good hands with him, this and that. And so we get in, and then
it's still only like 1:20, so we still have about 25 minutes to wait. And he, I pick a seat at the front of the bus because it's not air conditioned. It's not a nice bus. It's just like being crammed in a bus, in a van filled with people. So I wanted to sit in the front.
Yeah, one of those 15 passenger vans, but imagine it's like a 1988 Ford Econoline. It's not a Ford, but it's, you're shoved in there.
Yeah.
And we knew there was going to be a lot of people coming.
And this was all for the experience and saving ourselves roughly $60.
Well, and so we could get a podcast out of it.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
So we get in, and Heather wants to be in the front. She doesn't want to get sick, so we're like sitting in the front seat behind the driver.
But of course, instead of getting in and sitting next to me, like Trav is talking to this guy, Misha, to be friendly and find out all sorts of information with his million questions that he wants to know about the mashruka and the root and whatever. So I'm sitting there, and then the person next to me realizes that Trav's with me, so he moves so that Trav can sit next to me. So, I'm just sitting there kind of like reading on my iPad, waiting for the minibus to move on out to Signagi. And what should happen but an altercation?
Yeah, so we get in, and the last person to get in then, or a lady gets in, and she's just pretty nice, and she's like, what does she say to you? She
didn't say anything to me at first. She was obviously speaking in Georgian, so I didn't understand, but she was like, her bag was sitting next to me on the bench seat, but I thought it was like she wanted to take the seat I had been saving for Trav. So then she starts talking in Georgian, and then she starts talking to other people, like the driver of the bus. And so I'm getting like, oh no, what's happening? And I'm trying to relay the message that like the seat is saved. But apparently what had happened is that she had left her bag on the seat and then gone off to buy a snack or something, and had reserved this seat by placing her bag there. So then she says to me in perfect English, I booked this seat.
Yeah, which was a shock because even Misha, who was, helping us out, his English wasn't bad. It wasn't great. She said it like perfect.
Yeah. So I was just really confused. I was like, okay. Like, I'm sorry. You can sit here. But she was clearly a little bit flustered.
And she seemed a little upset with us.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay. So then Heather was sitting on the window. I was in the middle. And then this lady who seemed upset with us was sitting next to us. And the van pulls out, the mashruka pulls out, and we're going. And I'm thinking,
it's a 2.5 hour ride.
Oh, man, 2.5 hour ride. Everyone's crammed in here. Let's just hope we get to where we need to go. Thankfully, we're on this mashruka, and it's going the right way. And Misha speaks English, and he's in the front. He can talk to his dad if anything happens. And this lady's fanning herself, and it's hot in here. And I almost thought, I should say something like to maybe break the ice.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it's pretty hot today. Just something that, like friendly. Because I felt this like little bit of tension, and I don't like that at all. I don't like confrontation. I don't like tension. But I didn't say anything until she turned to me about 20 minutes into the trip, half hour into the trip, and she says, "Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you one question?" I thought,
what is this question going to be?
Yeah, and she just said, "Where are you from?" And we said, "Oh, we're from America. We live in Philadelphia, this and that." And so we started having a conversation with her. And she's actually, she's very, very nice, very sweet.
And she wasn't mean to begin with, but she was obviously flustered and wanted her seat. And so she even said to me, like, after we'd been talking for a few minutes, she's like, "I'm really sorry. I think I made a bad impression on you." And like, her English is perfect. Her English is so good. I'm like,
and it was quite shocking for us because we hadn't spoken to anyone in Georgia yet whose English was that good and that kind of proper. We should say.
So, I was like, of course, it's no problem. I'm sorry there was a, mistake with the seats. And so we're just talking to her, and she's really sweet, and she's sharing, information about her family and her children and Georgia and all sorts of stuff. And she's just a really nice person. So we're sitting there, and, we're about now an hour and a half into the 2.5 hour drive. And she's saying that she's going out to the countryside to see her mother, for the weekend, and her son is there, and so it's right next to Signagi.
Yeah, and so it was great, and it was passing the time, and we were stopping every 20 minutes to let people off and jam people in, and luckily we were the three in the front, so every time I would look back, more people were jammed in, and they looked so uncomfortable. I felt kind of bad because us three that were in the front bench were pretty well off and enjoying our ride, and finally, so then we were talking and she asks, I said, "Oh, well, can I see if my cell phone works? I just got this SIM card, and, why don't you give me your Georgia number?" Because she had said, "Oh, maybe we should try to meet in Tbilisi when we come back to Tbilisi." We were telling her our plans and stuff like that. Yeah, because she was talking
about her kids. Well, she herself is in her 40s, late 40s. And so she has children who are a 10-year-old and then a college graduate and then a 19-year-old. And she said her daughter speaks really good English and she knows her 19-year-old daughter would love to meet us. So if we're back in Tbilisi, maybe we could meet up.
Yeah, and we thought, okay, cool. So I said, yeah, let me try to text you to even see if the SIM card works. We haven't used it yet. And so she gives me her number, and I text, and she gets it. And we're like, it was funny because we were sitting right next to each other. So it's like when people first got cell phones, like, oh, look at this. And then she texts me back, and she says, would you like to come to my mother's house for a rest? And I saw it, and I was like, she texted me. She didn't ask me, so I looked at it.
She was being cheeky. You know what I mean?
And I was like, and I'm sitting there thinking, so I said, oh, what do you mean, like now? And she's like, yeah, before, my mother's house is before Signari, so if you want to get off there with me, we can get off, and you could come for rest, be an hour, and I'm thinking, okay, I wouldn't mind doing this, but it was a pain in the butt getting on this marshrutka. We know this is going to drop us off in the middle of Signari because this is where it's going to go, and then we can find our hotel from there, and I don't know about all this.
And so she was like, well, I can help you get the next marshrutka that's coming through, which will be like an hour and a half after this one drops us off, and it comes right past my house. She kept saying, like, it's right past my house. But you never know in these situations if right past their house really means, like, it stops outside her house.
Right.
So Trav's, like, looking over at me, and he's like, should we do this? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not?
Heather kept saying, yeah, sure, why not? Like, she wanted to do it. And I thought, we had been told, this was our rule I was alluding to in the beginning, that whenever you get invited into someone's home or to a party or something like that, we always try, if at all possible, to never turn it down when you're traveling, because that's when these experiences happen. And you never know, this is like a really authentic experience. You don't know where it's going to lead. It might not be the best. But usually that's one of the reasons we like to travel. And so I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, this is our rule. And everyone said, like, if you get invited into a Georgian home, like, everyone will invite you into a home in Georgia. So if you get invited, just do it. We had been, you can read that on Wiki Travel. Everyone echoes that. So I thought, we got to do this. But I kept thinking, oh, it's going to be such a pain. It's going to be such a pain to get another marshrutka.
Oh,
I don't want to deal
Travis.
with this. And I kept looking for reasons to say no, and she even said, I understand if you guys are tired or you're pressed for time, like, that's okay, because we kind of had already said yes. We're like, yeah, okay, fine, we'll come. But she kept giving us outs for like the next 20-25 minutes, and every time I almost took them and said, you know what? We're just going to go. Thank you so much. We're going to go to Signari. Like, maybe we can meet up with you later. And I don't know why I didn't. I think I didn't because of you. Because you kept saying, like, no, let's just go. You were really open to it and really
well, if we're going to be on a mashruka instead of having a personal driver, and we meet an incredibly nice woman who speaks perfect English, then yeah, I mean, why would we say no? Yeah,
so I'm glad you were following the rule, and you pushed me to do it, and so we decided, sure, we'll do it. So we got, we get off the mashruka at her house.
Well, first of all, how to stop the mashruka is just by asking the driver to stop the mashruka. So she asked the driver to stop. It literally was outside of her house. Then she proceeded to pay for our mashruka bus, which,
she wouldn't let us pay.
She wouldn't let us pay, which is super nice. So then we get off and we literally walk across the street, and here is like her mother's country house, which is like a very rustic house. It's
there's like an outhouse. There is electricity, but there's no running water all the time and all, and that's common, and it's in the country, but it's big. And the driver, we learned later, Irma, which is her name, I guess we could say that Irma is the one whose house we went to and who invited us. She told us later, the driver kept making sure, like, he was very tentative about letting you guys get off with me because he wanted to make sure that we were going to get to where we needed to go because his son Misha had helped us, and they were there, and they were really, so that was really nice too, that they were really worried that we might not find our way to Signari as well. So, but she allayed their fears by basically, I guess, telling them the plan, which we didn't know at that point. We assumed the plan was still to get a mashrutka about an hour and a half later. So we go into her mom's home. We sit outside, and they offer us some drinks.
Her son is there, Luca, who's very shy and very cute, and he's about, I don't know, 9 or 10. And, we're just sitting there, and then all of a sudden, here comes like a feast.
Yeah, well, her mother speaks no English.
None.
But is the cutest lady you ever meet. And she had told us, Irma had told us before, and like, my mom just moved out here, like, don't expect anything nice, but I think we'll be comfortable enough to rest. So we're sitting out on their outdoor, like, veranda, their patio, and they're getting us some drinks, and then they're asking us if we've had these different types of Georgian foods already in our first 3 days. And like, no, and like we haven't had king kali, which is like the dumplings and all. And all of a sudden, her mom, like, she brings out like a salad with tomatoes and onions and cucumbers. Like, oh, thank you so much.
And then Irma's like, oh no, I forgot the bread on the mashruka. She had brought bread to have at her mother's house, and she, forgot it. So then she's like, oh, I have to call my uncle. Maybe he can get bread, or my neighbors, and all this stuff. And we're like, listen, we don't need anything. It's fine.
Yeah. And so they bring out their homemade wine, and then the mom skitters off somewhere, and we're like, oh, geez, what is going to happen here? Like, we kind of knew what was going to happen, that they were going to have us this huge feast for us. I mean, you could just see the way things are going. So they bring out a little food at first. Long story short, 20 minutes later, there's a full-blown feast on the table. I mean, literally enough to feed 12 people.
Yeah.
And there is her mother, Irma, her son Luca was just watching TV and coming out and smiling at us every once in a while, Heather and I. And then her uncle shows up with about 7 loaves of this bread. He doesn't speak English at all either. His name is Tango.
Supposedly, allegedly.
Allegedly, his name is Tango, and he's an ex-cop in the area. He's retired, and he comes in.
Yeah.
And
well, he comes in and comes in through the gate, and Irma looks at us, and she's so cute. She's like, I have a surprise for you, is what she says. So apparently her uncle has come with bread. Of course.
That was one of the surprises.
But also, the bigger surprise was that he was going to take us to this really nice monastery right, near their house before you get to Signagi, that we had never heard of. But she had told us about on the bus, and she's like, are you going to go here? And we're like, oh, we don't even know where this is. So she's like, yeah, he has a Jeep, so he will take us after we eat. So, we're sitting there, and we're just talking, and Irma's like translating everything, and we learn in Georgia there's a custom that when you are at someone's house, they pour wine for you, and then they make a toast, and then you must drink the entire glass of wine.
Yeah, in one
after
shot.
the toast.
Right.
After the shot. So, we're sitting there, we're all like drinking wine, and like she's toasting, and it's just really sweet.
And then her mom's toasting, and then we're toasting, and it's all getting translated. And we did find out that Irma was, this is a really cool part of the story, that Irma is an English teacher for elementary school children.
Yeah, but then again, she was so cute about it, because she's like, we asked her what she did, and she's like, oh, I am ashamed to say what I do. And I was thinking, oh no, what is she going to say? And she's like, I'm ashamed to say that I teach English. I'm an English teacher. And we're like, why are you ashamed to say that? She's like, because my English isn't good enough. And we're like, your English is as good as our English.
And she was worried. She said, I only ever teach little kids. And she actually said to us, you're the very first native English speakers I've ever talked to, and I was so scared to say anything to you in the beginning because I've never spoken to a native English speaker, and I was sitting on the bus for the first 15 minutes, and I kept thinking, I really want to speak to them. They're native English speakers. I can't do it. When will I ever get this chance again? And obviously, I'm glad that she was more, had more, kind of, what am I trying to gumption,
to speak to us, because you didn't say anything to her.
I was going to say I had more balls, but I was trying to be polite.
Well, gumption
to come and speak to us, because we didn't speak to her because I was, nervous or whatever. And so we find all that out, and anyway, we're eating this feast. This feast goes on for about an hour and a half. Her mother had gone. There's one person who makes hinkali in the village, in this area.
A neighbor.
How they had it, I don't know, or maybe they had just made it. She comes back with this tray of probably 40 dumplings, and there's 5 of us, and Irma eats 1, Heather eats 2, Tango eats 4 or 5, and I have to eat 4 or 5 just to, I have to put a dent in this. So we had this huge, awesome feast, and just wine, food.
An outpouring of generosity for these people to let us into their homes, and then to be so happy that they've met us when we're so happy that we've met them. I mean, this is just such a nice thing for someone to do. I mean, can you imagine meeting somebody on a bus in Philadelphia and then just being like, hey, come to my house, and then they do? I mean, it's
I mean,
not something that Americans are especially used to.
Right down to Irma's mom then taking us like to her garden and showing us like her biggest pumpkin that she was so proud of, which was a huge pumpkin. And, you know, giving Heather, like we were trying to then go to the monastery with Tango. And she's giving us like fruit to take with us for the car ride.
Apples, you know, fresh from the tree that had like a stem and a leaf on it still that looked so pretty. And then I'm like getting into the back of Tango's Soviet era Jeep that he's so proud of.
Yes, the Soviet Lada Jeep, which is awesome.
And I'm like crawling into the back seat and she's handing me like handfuls of nuts, just like acorns and nuts that have fallen from the tree. And like she gives me one handful and I put it in my bag. And then she's like putting her hands through the window to give me more. I mean, it was so cute.
It was so cute. It was awesome. We get in Tango's Lada, his Soviet Lada, and he's driving us all over the place through these mountains and on. We're going to this monastery. And it's funny because he doesn't really speak any English. And he also, what I noticed too, I was sitting up front with him and Heather and Irma and her son Luke were in the back, and everyone in Georgia, not everyone, but he just like throws the seatbelt over him, but doesn't hook it in. So it looks like he's wearing a seatbelt so we won't get pulled over. But we're driving by and every time, you know, he sees a mountain, he just points to a high mountain and he just yells like, Kilimanjaro, and then just starts laughing. And that's
he was a jolly soul.
He was a big, jolly man. And he takes us to the monastery. Irma kind of gives us this whole history of the monastery. We go to this monastery we never would have found on our own. Side of the mountain. Absolutely beautiful.
One of the most beautiful monasteries that we saw. I mean, it was really pretty.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then they drive. So we say, okay, you know, and like, all right, we're going to take you to Signari. Obviously, you know, you're not going to catch the Mashruka. We would never hear of that. And this was a whole plan, I think, that Irma had been setting up once she knew we were kind of going to come. And that's why I'm really glad over those 20 minutes when she kept kind of giving us ways to get out that I almost took, that we didn't. And one of the things you even said to me, you were like, you kind of whispered to me, like, I think she's planning stuff.
Yeah.
And this, you know, was all planned, that we weren't ever going to catch a Mashruka there. They would never hear of us doing that. And so they took us to Signari, but of course our guest house wasn't on the main road, and they're driving us all the way through.
Oh my gosh.
And then we find our guest house.
I don't know how we would have found it if we just gotten off the bus, you know, like a normal person in the center square. It was kind of difficult to find. And they were redoing some of the roads, so it would have been hard to find. So fortunately we had them with us because they're just like pulling over on the side of the road asking any Georgian they see where the name of this guest house is that we were going
driving
to.
Down these like little alleys that I didn't think we'd even fit down, and we're popping out, and we finally find the guest house, and they were just, I think expected that we'd be staying at a hotel, like maybe a nicer hotel. I don't know why they expect that, because we were riding the Mashrutka. This was our budget day, and we were staying at this guest house, and I think they were even like a little worried.
Yeah, like, what is this guest house, and why are you
guys are staying here?
And I mean, it was a nice enough guest house, but I didn't love it or anything. So, yeah, it was a pretty incredible afternoon that started out in chaos and ended on a really high note.
Yeah, and I would say that as the day was going on, I kept saying to Heather, do you think this is our top travel experience of all time? Because we've done another podcast of our top travel days, you know, just these days that we had, you know, if you... And one of the top ones was this crazy day that we had in Montenegro. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, go check that out, where we find ourselves with these people who don't speak English on the hillside in Kotor, Montenegro, drinking rakia and doing and stuff like that. And this, I think, spoiler alert, if we do this again, might be my number one travel day that we've ever had. And it was just because it started, we were like, oh, this stinks and we can't find this. And then within 2 hours of us not even knowing the Mashruka was, we were at someone's house having a feast and having this really authentic travel experience. So you really can't beat that. And I think that is the overarching morale to the story. The reason why we travel, you know, that kind of encapsulated is the fact that, you know, it really is, we kind of use the term travel is life. Well, we do use the term travel is life unscripted. And it has its highs and its lows, but the highs are so amazing. And I think the goodness of people is really the moral of the story, is that you never know what you're going to get, but 99% of the time, we have amazing experiences.
Yeah, it really shines through that you can find people in the world who are just genuinely nice, good people. And it's nice to be reminded of that. And when we're traveling, it's so fun to have these experiences, even if some of it was a mishap, but it's a good story, first of all. And what's the worst that's really going to happen? We miss this mashruka, or we have to get a driver. And even the second taxi we took was offering to drive us all the way to Signagi for $40. So, at the very worst, we could have done something like that. So it's a good reminder that no matter what you do, it's probably going to work out when you're traveling.
And I think the older I get, the more a little neurotic I get with that. I kind of I forget that. Okay, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? I keep thinking, well, we got to get here, and what if this doesn't work out? What if that? And then when you just let it happen and you go with it and you follow the travel rule that if you're invited into someone's home or to a party or something like that, and, obviously if you feel comfortable enough and it's a safe situation and all, but if you're invited in one of these situations, as much as you can, take it, because that ended up being one of the highlights of our trip in Georgia. And when
Absolutely.
we talk more about Georgia, this happened more than once.
Yeah, it happened more than once. It happened on our third day in Georgia, and we're like, this is amazing. This is the best. This probably won't happen again the rest of the trip. And it's still the most special because it happened first, and Irma is such a wonderful person. But then it happened so many other times while we were in Georgia. This country is filled with generous, sweet, good-natured people.
So if you're given the opportunity, follow our travel rule. If you're invited into someone's home
just
or to
say
dinner,
yes.
Just say yes. Follow that travel rule. If you feel that nagging, oh, it's going to be hard, it's going to be more complicated, don't bail out like I wanted to do. Be like Heather and be like, I'm just going to go for it. And you're probably going to have an amazing time. So just want to tell you that story. It was awesome for us. We are going to give you a lot more Georgia travel tips. We will tell you about some of the other times that we got invited to people's homes. We're going to do a whole recap of useful information, places to stay, what to see, all that kind of stuff when we do our Destinations Diary Republic of Georgia podcast. And we really did fall in love with that country. So again, spoiler alert, we love it. There's going to be a lot of great information in there. But we wanted to pass this along because it gets lost sometimes. This idea that why we travel isn't always the beautiful sunsets and the Eiffel Tower and the things like that, although that's amazing, but it's also these cultural experiences, and it's the people that you run into, and it's these highs that you never would have ever, we could have never scripted this. We would have had no idea we'd meet someone who we thought was mean on a mashruka.
Absolutely not.
And ended up at their house an hour and a half later with their mom who spoke no English, eating dumplings and drinking homemade wine.
No, you definitely would not expect that to happen.
So thank you guys for tuning in today. If you want to hop on our email newsletter, don't forget you can text the word right from your phone, peanuts, P-E-A-N-U-T-S. I didn't make you spell it this time, to 33444. So just text peanuts to 33444. That'll get you on our email newsletter list. We're doing a lot of cool stuff. Once we get home from Greece and from London and from this trip, we've got a lot of cool stuff planned. So hop on the email newsletter list there. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support as always. Thanks for making us the #1 rated travel podcast on iTunes. And until next time,
happy free travel.